Webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? Pistols and fondle slab of choice. I don't know when that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to have to read these two sources whenever I try to prove out one of these. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to sadly disappoint another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty, dirty old man, huh?
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions? Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2, within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America. We bring you the Ochelli Effect.
I damn sure know I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up the gumption to put these things out.
And that is that. Good evening, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is the Ochelli Effect. I am Chuck Ochelli, your host. So, it is Tuesday night, and I gotta tell you, it's been quite an interesting week, all the way around. Hopefully, this sounds pretty good to you guys out there, because I'm trying out something new. I haven't done a full broadcast with this setup before, but it seems to be working okay, and hopefully we won't have any sort of signal issues or anything else. Now, it is Tuesday night, and normally I do the Liberty Beacon night. I haven't quite heard from Roger Landry, who I usually do hear from by now, and we're just double-checking on some things to see what's going on. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like I might just bring in my second hour guest, which of course everybody's very familiar with, and has been on a lot of my shows, either by default or by design lately. And of course he's doing his thing, and that's Dylan Wade, and I'll introduce him in just a sec to this call. Like I said, he was going to be on in the second hour, but hey, we'll just add him on in now if we can. Anyway, yeah, so I am under a different setup. I actually am going to be able to play clips, although I didn't get to test the sound quality of that stuff. I'm also able to read a little bit, maybe. We'll try that again. Hey, Dylan, how you doing tonight?
Good, yeah. What's up?
Oh, chaos as usual, my friend. What can I say? I thought I was going to have Roger on in the first hour, and I can't seem to get in touch with him, so here you are.
Sorry about the simulcast on Saturday.
No big deal, man. It was just a misunderstanding, and hey, I wound up just babbling for 2 hours by myself, and what
Don't
can
worry,
you do?
That was my second hour.
Well, at least in the first hour you had Roger on, so, it wasn't so bad.
Right, yeah.
Look, hey, of course, last night we launched the Town Crier website for Liberty Beacon, which is the Liberty Beacon radio network site. So that's
Awesome.
out there now.
Yeah, I got to check it out the other day. It looks good.
No, it looks nice. Did you see any of the archive stuff yet?
No, I haven't gotten to look in yet.
Okay, well, it's got a live stream and a chat room, and it's going to have archives, but these things are coming together. Everybody's show pages and all that are getting done piece by piece also. Of course, you're going on tomorrow night.
Oh, I am. Okay.
Right,
Thanks.
you
Thank you for the reminder.
You see, this is the thing, man. When you start doing a whole bunch of different things, you get scatterbrained as to which network you're supposed to be on when and what you're supposed to be doing and who's supposed to be joining you, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I was scheduling a guest, and I was trying to think which network I was on at which time. I'm on 3 networks now. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, well, I generally keep my one home network, and then I do other things, additionally. But that's the way it goes. The Ochelli effect is generally here on UCY, and it's been here for 3 days a week for some months now. Originally started out as just a Saturday night show, but hey, it's expanding, and of course, I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun sometimes trying to get different guests and different people to participate, and you never know who's around when.
Yeah, I've learned that too.
Yeah, so that's part of the fun of broadcasting. So, you know what I was thinking about doing in the case that we couldn't get Roger was to simply go to the Liberty Beacon, which is all one word, thelibertybeacon.com, and just kind of take a quick look at what's what over there on the website. A couple of these things were published a few days ago. I was reading an Ebola article, of course.
Oh,
That
so
always gets my attention.
yeah, I was eating dinner yesterday, and my mom says it's in Delaware. No, it's not.
Well, now we have, let's see, we have a nurse that has it now. Of course, since the last time I broadcast, I think the guy who originally brought it to Dallas died. Of course, you have tons of pontification over the CDC and how they're going to handle all this. And isn't
So,
it all just wonderful?
I have a question about
Sure.
this whole thing.
Go ahead.
Logically speaking, if this started in April, with all the planes going in and out of West Africa, theoretically speaking, the whole world would have been contaminated.
Well, I'm not exactly sure about the amount of planes that come in West Africa. I mean, there's a decent amount of
Yeah,
traffic, but
but
yeah.
figure over a 6-month period, and some of those people are plane hopping. Theoretically speaking, the whole world should have it by now, which tells me that something's up with this story.
Well, right. I'll tell you what. Since we're talking about this, and I haven't read this article ahead of time or anything else, but again, we'll just go to the Liberty Beacon website, and of course, under government, they have the title "Ebola is the most dangerous false flag event in history."
No, they're doing it too.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, look, when you're talking about a false flag event, well, let's first give it a chance and just take a look here. Let's see. This is by Dave Hodges on the website there. Okay, so I'm reading from the article now. The Washington Post reported that a major Liberian newspaper, the Daily Observer, has published an article by a Liberian-born faculty member of a U.S. university who is strongly implying the epidemic is the result of bioterrorism experiments conducted by the United States Department of Defense. The professor from Delaware State University, Cyril Broderick, is the professor making these claims. This and other similar claims begs the question, quote, is Ebola a manufactured crisis that is being allowed to purposely spread to countries in the West, including the United States? There's more to the article, but I was wondering if you had anything you want to say so far.
So the professor obviously lost her job, right?
Gee, I don't know. Let's continue on, I guess. So, of course, the next subtitle of the article is "The Odds of Ebola Spreading to the West." Okay. A series of highly sophisticated scientific and statistical analyses are strongly suggestive of the fact that the best chance that the West has to contain the spread of Ebola is to shut down their borders and to ban all direct and indirect flights from West Africa into Western nations. Well, let's see. A PLOS analysis of disease spread patterns and airline traffic data suggests that the virus has a 50% chance of reaching Great Britain by October 24th, it says here.
I think they're assuming that virus is an actual threat. Because I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here. I haven't seen any proof that this virus has killed anybody in the U.S. yet.
Well, as usual, we have, look, you have a thought here, and I participate in both of them. One of them is that obviously this disease, as it is and as it was, is a serious threat if it begins to spread, all that kind of stuff. I just think that in general, it's not going to do the type of damage to the U.S. population that so many people are warning about. I just don't see it. Okay?
And it's the same type of damage that I think they're alluding to in the article, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I don't see it getting this far. I don't see it getting much farther than where it's at.
Well, see, that's how I saw it to begin with, and still believe that it'll be contained by the sheer fact that it just generally was a fast-moving kind of thing. But the problem is now we've learned, of course, that the incubation period takes a while, and somebody who doesn't feel sick at all could travel and wind up popping up with the disease in another place. So this is a worry, obviously, and if we were doing the smart thing as far as containing ourselves, and if this was the serious threat that it's supposed to be, you'd figure that the logical move by the powers that be here, if they were actually, giving a damn about those of us on the ground who would end up with the disease, would be to restrict or shut down travel, at least temporarily, until this was fully contained. You would think, anyway. So look, let's continue on because we got the 50% chance by October 24th to Great Britain, right? Okay, experts have also predicted there is a 75% chance the virus could reach France by October 24th. Okay, still that 24th date, which I find interesting because that'll be exactly right after that interesting solar eclipse. Look it up. Anyways, Belgium has a 40% chance of seeing the disease imported, yeah, that's the word they used, while Spain and Switzerland have lower risks of 14% each. This is not much comfort for Spain because the Washington Post is reporting the following, quote, in the first known case of Ebola transmission outside of Africa, a nurse in Spain has contracted the deadly virus after caring for a sick priest who had been flown back from West Africa, for treatment. Spanish Health Minister Ana Mato said at a news conference Monday, the Spanish case points to the fact that no one can establish odds, but when it comes to Ebola, but it only takes one infected person getting through to pose a major health crisis. So we have the Typhoid Mary scenario being pushed there, I guess, where it's like, look, it only takes one person to get in, and then we'll have this out-of-control outbreak. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't know. It's really tough to tell. I mean, it has gotten to Spain, but if one person gets it, logically speaking, they will most likely die before it gets any further than them.
See, that's what you would think, but there's a difference between being symptomatic and communicable regarding this stuff, and I've got to tell you that I've heard contradictory projections regarding this. So I'm not really sure if we're looking at something where somebody could, actually go around for a week or 10 days and really be transmitting the hell out of it. And I'm still stuck on the concept that this was supposed to be the kind of thing where you had to have direct contact with body fluids and things like this in order.
I don't believe that it has to be body fluids, because why would they keep them quarantined if that was the case?
Well, because look, it lessens the chances. I mean, you have people that accidentally cut themselves. That means that they're spreading, a biotoxin essentially just by getting cut or whatever else. There's all sorts of, accidents of everyday life that one could end up, being the main spreader of the disease, right? And,
I guess. But
it's okay.
Wasn't the CDC saying that it was airborne? I've heard so many things on this.
Well, see, that's the thing. There's been such a serious crosstalk of information and disinformation, I would say, regarding this, that it's now difficult to sort through what the realistic sense of the threat is, and to really relate it anymore, because it's all got to do with your sources once again. But this stuff is contradictory in its nature. I mean, it just seems to me as though, like I said, looking at this in the 90s even, when they were just talking about it being in particular areas and the horror of it liquefying your organs and all that kind of stuff, it seemed as though it had a very short incubation period, and therefore, if you just simply temporarily contained an area, you would contain the disease by default. If you simply contained the outbreak, right? Of course, the famous Dustin Hoffman starring movie there. With the other guy with the helicopter and the whole bit, where a town ends up with it, and then the government's going to potentially wipe it out, and all this other good stuff, although they had the vaccine ahead of time, all that kind of good stuff. This kind of thing, but it really should have been able to be contained, and therefore it wouldn't have had the opportunity to transfer itself by way of being carried by a human host. At least that's what we thought.
What's more dangerous, though? Ebola scaring everybody, or the media scaring everybody with the threat of this virus that realistically is relatively controlled right now?
Well, that's the big question, I guess. Anyway, let's go back to the article, because there's more. Let's see. Meanwhile, in Spain, the potential carnage does not stop with one nurse. Spanish health authorities have now confirmed that 3 more medical personnel at the same hospital are being isolated because of Ebola symptoms. The multiple PLOS analyses also stated that if authorities were to take steps to reduce air travel from West Africa to Britain and France by 80%, France's risk would be lowered to 25%, while Britain's risk would be lowered to 15%. The most effective Ebola countermeasure is to stop Ebola from reaching the United States. To stop Ebola from reaching the United States is to ban flights from the infected areas. Kind of what I already said. But, okay. Yet, and inexplicably, the World Health Organization, the WHO, has not placed any restrictions on travel, and the WHO has actually gone so far as to encourage the various airlines to keep flying to the countries with the biggest Ebola outbreaks. However, that makes a great deal of sense, since the WHO blocked Ebola treatments from reaching West Africa. And the plot thickens, right? Let's see. Even Fox News, in a recent editorial, is enraged by the fact that Obama has failed to initiate a travel ban on West African flights. Well, Fox News is enraged because Obama breathes, regardless of how valid their points are or not. So that's kind of a pointless thing. Okay. Presidential inaction. Now, here we go. That's another subtitle. In light of this information, any reasonable person should be compelled to ask these questions. Quote, why won't President Obama take the most basic steps to protect Americans from Ebola by stopping direct and indirect flights from West Africa? And why won't he also mitigate the bioterrorism threat which could come from our wide open southern border? Okay, Mike Adams, the owner of the Natural News, has pointed out on the Common Sense show from October 5th, 2014, Thomas Eric Duncan, who was the patient zero here, walked freely through our airports and entered the general population without ever being asked by U.S. security personnel about where he was from or if he had any health conditions. Now, I thought he answered a questionnaire and all that.
Well, now I have a question.
Okay, I hope I have an answer.
Why is it such a big deal that somebody who wasn't seemingly at risk at the time wasn't asked any questions? I thought we were innocent until proven guilty. I thought we weren't allowed to be searched by TSA.
Well, this isn't a criminal thing, obviously, and
right.
Factually
I know.
speaking,
I'm just theoretical here.
yeah, well, theoretically, look, if you take into account that you have a serious bio health incident in a particular area with a communicable disease, you would figure that the TSA, the Transportation Safety Administration, might think that that it would be appropriate to sort of screen people coming from a particularly infected area, et cetera, et cetera. But then
Well,
again, I mean, it's
I
not
don't.
like we were testing loads of fish coming from Japan after Fukushima either, right? So why bother with that? Go ahead, what you
Well,
say?
I am unsure about the specific flight patterns, so that's why I was asking because I figured he was just somebody walking around and maybe contracted the virus from somebody else.
Well, look, all of that, whatever, however he got it from the West African village or whatever, is kind of irrelevant. The idea is that how was this guy sort of allowed to come into the country without even being questioned or asked or anything else? How was anybody coming from that region
Uh,
being allowed to enter without without even being looked at in some way or other? Don't you think that all those screening processes that they
uh,
have there would be well used if they tried to do something like that?
well, the threat wasn't exactly taken seriously at the time.
Well, yeah, but why? The thing is, we had reports of this coming out of that area of the world for months now.
I'm not sure why I'm trying to defend him here. I'm
Yeah,
really not sure.
yeah, me neither. That's my
I
question.
don't know.
But I mean, think about it. Look, if you have, let's just say, let's create a new viral threat, okay? If you have something that just makes your head explode after a couple of days, and you have high fever and hemorrhagic fever also, let's just call it another form of hemorrhagic fever where your head literally explodes. Okay, if that's happening in a particular area of the world, if that's happening in a particular country because of something that got out there, and who knows what the real roots are, don't you think it would be smart if this is something that can be passed person to person for other countries to say, hey, look, maybe you guys should stay where you're at for a little while, and we should restrict anybody coming from your area for a little while until we can figure out how to contain head exploding hemorrhagic fever? You know.
I think both are valid arguments.
Okay.
I
So,
mean, I don't know why I was trying to defend him, honestly.
okay, let's see.
I guess I was playing devil's advocate.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so to continue with that part of the article, not only is Obama negligent, he is not following federal guidelines and procedures according to several sources. This has led some federal employees to assert that Ebola is a manufactured crisis. According to one insider source that I spoke with yesterday, this is what the article says, by the way, this isn't me speaking. If the proper procedures were being enforced, we would see the following response from government in response to Ebola cases in Dallas. Okay, 1. The National Guard would seal off any area connected to an Ebola outbreak. 2. Health authorities would redirect the population to hospitals, churches, and schools. 3. The redirected population would be screened for possible infection or contamination. 4. If an individual or individuals tested positive, they would be evacuated to a quarantine camp or military base and treatment and kept until they were cured or they died. 5. All infected individuals in said area would be forcibly vaccinated. 6.
Oh, great.
There would be no travel allowed in or out of the area connected to the outbreak. 7. The geographic source area of the outbreak, if foreign, would be banned from travelers coming into the U.S. or travelers leaving. 7. All public events, school attendance, attending football games, rock concerts, etc., in the impacted area would be indefinitely suspended until the health crisis had passed. Okay. These are basic ideas of what would happen if we had a very serious communicable disease outbreak in an area in the United States, that this would be the proper set of responses. And they all seem like very common sense kind of things to do in the case where you have something that is uncontrollable like this. Now, there is a lot of question as to whether treatment or vaccination is available for Ebola. There are treatments available, but the companies that make them, there's some controversy over that. Of course, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, and then we got an AJ reference here. Okay. Let's see. Airing on September 18, 2004, Alex Jones spoke with former CIA operative Robert David Steele, who predicts an Ebola-related false flag. Steele stated that a simulated attack on America using Ebola will be initiated. Okay.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. Instead of the employment of known and effective containment procedures and moving to mitigate the bioterrorism threat coming through our southern border, the Obama administration instead gives us this meaningless rhetoric from national health officials. Quote, oh no, not a quote, sorry. The professionalism of these empty reassurances sounded more like a pep rally than a medical news conference designed to outline clear and concise medical plan of action. And then there's a video clip there. U.S. Homeland Security, Ebola zone, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then, of course, the question is asked, Obama's leadership, ineptitude, or treason, and all that kind of good stuff. And this is where we go on this. Look, I say that still we are looking at the interjection of another one of these, false epidemics. The bird flu was supposed to wipe out a lot of us. The swine flu was supposed to do so. This is how I see it. The fact that the Obama administration is not reacting properly is what? A surprise?
Yeah, I really don't see why we're supposed to be shocked.
Yeah, me neither. Treason. Well, treason is a difficult thing to nail down right away, but ineptitude and the fact that this is just not the guy who's actually in charge of all this. Good points in the article, though, about, why is it that we have a wide open southern border when we would have no clue as to, and here's the logical sense of this. You have no idea what would be going on with the southern border regarding their exposure to foreign elements, et cetera, and to contain whatever diseases could be brought across. This is part of the story as well.
Well,
but go ahead.
If Dick Cheney were in charge, we'd go bomb it.
Well, yeah, after he goes hunting and all that. But
I don't think there's really anyone in the past who's prepared for this.
No.
I don't think we can properly judge how to tackle this because we've never seen something in the past to understand.
Well, if this is the true imminent danger, and this is the truly deadly, horrendous pandemic that is on its way, that is going to wipe out, significant segments of the population, a response by that large, over-bloated, centralized government would be sort of a good idea in my estimation, but we're not seeing that. All we're seeing really is just the promotion of panic and a lot of appeals to authority. And let me just say, the one guy they keep dragging out from the CDC is probably one of the most creepy guys I have ever laid eyes on.
Yeah, I've seen him.
He looks like he ought to be drawn into a cartoon, and he ought to have one of those monster cereals made after him. Right after they make Franken Carrie Berry, they ought to make that guy's cereal up, and I don't know what monster he would be. Perhaps the unwrapped mummy, I'm not sure. But there's something going on.
Yeah, I do agree, though, that we're seeing the promotion of panic, the promotion of fear.
Right. You gotta not drop off your voice like that, because sometimes it makes it hard for people to understand you when you say stuff.
Sorry, I didn't notice that I did. Sorry.
Yeah, No, you do that a lot. It's one of those things I notice. Actually, one of these days I'm gonna sit down with you and kind of go over a couple of things that you do presentation wise. Probably after you do your show tomorrow night. So,
Are
I
you gonna be my producer for that?
it looks like you and Randy. I mean, I might try and participate in that in some way, but I'm not sure yet. So,
Okay. Oh, I might be calling you up if you're good for that. I might be calling you up.
no problem, no problem. So, where should we go now with the Liberty Beacon site? Let's see.
Hmm.
I mean,
Um, Not much has happened with the ISIS crisis. I really do love saying that.
yeah, it just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Well, let's see. Well, we got a health section, we got a government section. Let's just go down the headlines in the government section. Let's see details of how mandatory Ebola vaccines will soon be a reality.
Mm.
Guess who Obama is now blaming for his poor approval ratings? I already read Ebola is the most dangerous false flag event in history. Modern art was a CIA weapon. What do you think of that one?
I'd have to read it.
Okay. Question for the CDC: where's all the thimerosal gone? Let's see. Environment, GMOs, one bite away from failing health. Monsanto and our government, or is it their government? Another independent study confirms Monsanto's Roundup chemicals are lethal even in small doses. Geoengineering, biosphere destruction, and the last chance for life on Earth. Let's see. What do you think? Where should we go? Connecticut becomes the first state to suspend constitution over Ebola scare. Gold,
I'm losing you, man.
paper. You're losing me? Gold, paper, and our enslavement in a world of perpetual war.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
It's breaking up really bad.
Oh boy. All right, well, let's see what I can do about that. Hopefully everybody out there can still
It
hear
might
me.
be on my end.
Yeah, let's see. Really quickly. No. Okay. It looks like Dylan is the one that had a problem there with his Skype. Okay. No problem. I'll pick him back up when he comes back in. Let's see. All right, just because it grabs me, we'll go to modern art was a CIA weapon. This was actually published on October 6th and filed under government and media. And again, I'm reading this stuff from thelibertybeacon.com. That's all one word, thelibertybeacon.com. Let's see now. This is by Francis Stonor Sanders, and I'm not real familiar with him, but let's see. For decades, in art circles, it was either a rumor or a joke, but now it is confirmed as fact. The Central Intelligence Agency used American modern art, including the works of such artists as Jackson Pollock, Robert Motherwell, don't know him too well, Willem de Koning, and Mark Rothko, as a weapon in the Cold War, in the matter of a Renaissance prince, except that it acted secretly. The CIA fostered and promoted American abstract expressionist painting around the world for more than 20 years. This is interesting. Let's see. The connection is improbable. This was a period in the 1950s and 60s when the great majority of Americans disliked or even despised modern art. President Truman summed up the popular view when he said, "If that's art, then I'm a..." Oh boy, oh boy. I can't even read that. Anyway, let's see. As the artists themselves, many were ex-communists, barely acceptable in the America of the McCarthyite era, and certainly not the sort of people normally likely to receive U.S. government backing. Why did the CIA support them? Because in the propaganda war with the Soviet Union, this new artistic movement could be held up as proof of the creativity, the intellectual freedom, and the cultural power of the U.S. Power of the U.S. Russian art, strapped into the communist ideological straitjacket, could not compete. Well, as a tool of propaganda, media, artistic expression, music, and everything else have been used for a very long time to, to sort of couch one's enemies in one particular fashion or another. This is my commentary, and this is one of the things that's, kind of normal. I'm sort of surprised that this brought about a large article. So let's see. Okay. The existence of this policy, rumored and disputed for many years, has now been confirmed for the first time by former CIA officials. Unknown to the artist, the new American art was secretly promoted under a policy known as the long leash. Arrangements similar in some ways to the indirect CIA backing of the journal Encounter, edited by Stephen Spender. Okay. The decision to include culture and art in the U.S. Cold War arsenal was taken as soon as the CIA was founded in 1947. Dismayed at the appeal communism still had for many intellectuals and artists in the West, the new agency set up a division. The Propaganda Assets Inventory, which at its peak could influence more than 800 newspapers, magazines, and public information organizations. They joked that it was a Wurlitzer jukebox. Okay, when the CIA published a button, it could hear whatever tune it wanted playing across the world. Well, this really does speak to the infiltration of propaganda, etc., throughout the planet by the agencies, and this is a pretty well-known fact, in my estimation. But hey, let's see what happens here. Looks like try to re-add Dylan back into the conversation. So let's see. Decision to include culture and art. They joked. All right. The next key step came in 1950 when the International Organizations Division, the IOD, was set up under Tom Braden. It was this office which subsidized the animated version of George Orwell's, subsidized the animated version of George Orwell's Animal Farm, which sponsored American jazz artists, opera recitals, the Boston Symphony Orchestra's international touring program, etc. Its agency was placed in the film industry, in publishing houses, even as travel writers for the celebrated Fodor guides. And we now know it promoted America's anarchic avant-garde movement, abstract expressionism. Okay. And looks like Dylan was here and then gone again. So we'll try one more time to bring him back in. I think he's having a Skype issue. So, initially, there you are again, Dylan. It seems as though you're having Skype issues. Can you hear me? Yeah. There you are again, Dylan. It seems as though you're having Skype issues.
Yeah, my connection is horrible right now.
Well, whatever we can do, we'll do. I've now been reading an article on the CIA's use of modern art as a weapon. So, where was I at? Avant-garde, abstract expressionisms. Right. Okay. Initially, more open attempts were made to support the new American art. In 1947, the State Department organized and paid for a touring international exhibition entitled Advanced American Art, with the aim of rebutting Soviet suggestions that America was a cultural desert. But the show caused outrage at home, prompting Truman to make his, Hottentot remark, and one bitter congressman to declare, "I am just a dumb American who pays taxes for this kind of trash." The tour had to be canceled. Let's see. The U.S. government now faced a dilemma. This Philistinism, combined with Joseph McCarthy's hysterical denunciations of all that was avant-garde or unorthodox, was deeply embarrassing. It discredited the idea that America was a sophisticated, culturally rich democracy. It also prevented the U.S. government from considering the shift in culture's supremacy from Paris to New York since the 1930s. To resolve this dilemma, the CIA was brought in. Isn't that strange? And Dylan is gone again. Okay. The connection is not quite as odd as it might appear at this time. The new agency, staffed mainly by Yale and Harvard graduates, many of whom collected art and wrote novels in their spare time, was a haven of liberalism when compared with a political world dominated by McCarthy or with J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. In any official institution was in a position to celebrate the collection of Leninists, Trotskyites, and heavy drinkers that made up the New York school. It was the CIA. If any official institution was in a position to celebrate the collection of Leninists, Trotskyites, and heavy drinkers that made up the New York school, it was the CIA. Got it. Okay. It was just my bad reading there. Sorry. Until now, there has been no first-hand evidence to prove that this connection was made, but for the first time, a former case officer, Donald Jameson, has broken the silence. Yes, he says, the agency saw abstract expressionism as an opportunity, and yes, it ran with it. Regarding abstract expressionism, I'd love to be able to say that the CIA invented it, just to see what happens in New York and downtown Soho tomorrow, he joked. But I think that what we did really was to recognize the difference. It was recognized that abstract expression-ism, was the kind of art that made socialist realism look even more stylized and more rigid and confined than it was. And that relationship was exploited in some of the exhibitions. I don't know, this kind of ended up being a little bit disappointing to me, I've got to say, because it ends up just being a story essentially explaining that during the Cold War, that there were cultural assets in the avant-garde world that were seized upon in the very same way that media assets were seized upon, in the very same way that music was being seized upon. And cultural weaponism is something that we often make allusions to when we're doing these types of broadcasts, but the controlled opposition and all that kind of stuff, really does sort of skirt over it quickly and not examine it deeply. But a lot of this stuff, which seems to be rebellious in nature, seems to be more of the pirate type culture, more of the subculture or the counterculture, is often controlled by the agencies. I mean, and this came up on a recent discussion I had with somebody else about the counterculture of the 60s and how a great deal of that was precisely the most controlled opposition ever. And when they were through with it and when there was enough of a backlash, regarding the activities of a lot of the counterculture, they dismantled it in a fairly abrupt way. I mean, all you have to do is take a look at how the Black Panther Party was dismantled, by the FBI. You take a look at the actions of various COINTELPRO operations, which were designed to infiltrate and ultimately destroy dissent. So I often keep this in mind as I continue on with the type of exploration I do, because we all know that there's plenty of controlled opposition out there. By the way, anybody wants to join me during this debacle of a show, the phone lines are open, 718-717-8296. I'd be more than happy to take your calls, and we could go in any direction you want. I have now gone over to thefallingdarkness.com, all one word, which is a partnered site of the Liberty Beacon, because I do focus on the Liberty Beacon on Tuesdays, and since I don't have guests to do it with, I'll just do it myself. And by randomly selecting headlines, articles, and what have you that appeal to me for one reason or another. So, let's see. This, all right. This article is titled "The War on Drugs is Slavery." Okay. We have, this is posted by the Daily Sheeple, it says. That's interesting. What is it? It's a video piece mainly. All right. So now we'll go back one because we're not going to do that right now. Okay. We have Ebola at the top of the list here. Amazes me. No matter what type of media we're talking about, Ebola is the key issue, and I still say it's going to be one of those things that blows away like a hurricane. And you might remember the name of it a year from now, but nobody will remember the exact damage or what actually happened. And because it's all me tonight, you get to hear me light my cigarettes and whatever else. So, okay. Let's see. Other headlines here. Texas medical martial law and forced detention to begin with second suspected patient. The number of volcanic eruptions is increasing, and this could lead to an extremely cold winter. What David Rockefeller really thinks. An Ebola outbreak would be advantageous for globalists. All right. Let's see. Where should I go? Chomsky, U.S. spawned a fundamentalist Frankenstein in the Mideast. Oh, good Lord. I can't resist taking a look at what Gatekeeper Chomsky has to say. My. This was published on the 10th of October. Okay. The actual source for the original article is alternate, I guess. For decades now, Noam Chomsky has been widely regarded as the most important intellectual alive. Wow. In parentheses, linguist, philosopher, social and political critic, and the leading U.S. dissident since the Vietnam War. But this is a guy who will tell you that the JFK assassination is pretty much an irrelevant event and there was no conspiracy, etc., etc. So I'm telling you now that I see him as a gatekeeper, and that's my commentary. Okay. Let's see, Vietnam War. Okay, Chomsky has published over 100 books and thousands of articles and essays, and is the recipient of dozens of honorary doctorate degrees by some of the world's greatest academic institutions. His latest book, Masters of Mankind, Essays and Lectures, 1969 to 2013, has just been published by Haymarket Books. On the occasion of the release of his last book, Chomsky gave an exclusive and wide-ranging interview to C.J. Polychronow, I don't know what that is, for Truth Out, parts of which will appear in the Sunday, Manager Greek newspaper. Okay. Nationally televised. All right. Noam Chomsky, and I'm skipping through some of this. Noam Chomsky, quote, inevitable is a strong word, but the appearance of ISIS and the general spread of radical jihadism is a fairly natural outgrowth of Washington wielding its sledgehammer at the fragile society of Iraq, which was barely hanging together after a decade of US-UK sanctions, so onerous that the respected international diplomats who administered them via the UN both resigned in protest, charging that they were genocidal. Well, Chomsky, again, of course, will make a good point here, which is that inevitably what's going to happen when we do the types of things, or our assets, I should say, not we, because I don't count you, the listener, and myself in this, but those acting on our behalf at any rate, exercise military imperialism in certain areas, balkanize countries, and cause chaos so that they can restore order. Well, obviously, there is some real terrorist sort of, blowback from that. There is some freedom fighters that will rise up because they don't want to see their sovereign nation destroyed. And this is not the fault of the people there. This is the fault of the actions of our assets, once again. So, yeah, good point there. And sanctions were genocide. That's accurate, but that's the thing that these two diplomats who were involved there supposedly say. Okay, one of the most respected mainstream U.S., back to the article, one of the most respected mainstream U.S. Middle East analysts, former CIA operative Graham Fuller, recently wrote that I think the United States is one of the key creators of ISIS. The United States did not plan the formation of ISIS, but its destructive interventions in the Middle East and the war in Iraq were the basic causes of the birth of ISIS. Okay. So Mr. Respected does not know who actually, intentionally dropped weapons, allegedly, into areas where these guys could have them. Is not aware of the opposition that was created, I guess, regarding the Assad regime and all of the outgrowths of the nonsensical, fabricated different springs that went on in the Middle East. I guess he's not aware of that stuff. So the birth of ISIS merely comes from this. Meanwhile, the propagating and the absolute, forefront of propaganda has been all the fault of U.S. assets and everything else. The overblown boogeyman that has been created, is probably simply being linked to a legitimate backlash on the ground. But of course, why recognize that, sir? Okay. He is correct, I think. The situation is a disaster for the U.S., but it is a natural result of its invasion. One of the grim consequences of U.S.-UK aggression was to inflame sectarian conflicts that are now tearing Iraq to shreds and have spread over the whole region with awful consequences. Again, when you see this stuff come together so well when it's planned out, it just screams that it's been planned out. The coincidental residual birth of a movement is idiocy. This was intentionally done. This was fabricated on purpose so that we would have another excuse to reinvest ourselves into one place and to begin to our incursions into Syria, obviously. Anybody who sees this as anything other than a mechanism of strategy, I am at a loss for words. I don't know what to say here. Oof. All right. ISIS seems to represent, this is back to the article, ISIS seems to represent a new jihadist movement with greater, inherent tendencies toward barbarity in the pursuit of its mission to reestablish an Islamic caliphate, yet apparently more able to recruit young radical Muslims from the heart of Europe and even as far as Australia than Al-Qaeda itself, in your view. Why has religious fanaticism become the driving force behind so many Muslim movements around the world? ? You're kidding me, right? We're really going to stick to the concept that this is all the Great Crusade coming back, and that this is nothing more than religious fanaticism coming to fruition. This is really where we're going to stick to. And Dylan, you're back with me again.
Yeah, I've restarted my computer.
Okay. Well, maybe that'll do it. You seem loud and clear now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. I'm on an article from the Falling Darkness, so I went through the whole CIA using modern art as a weapon, and
Aw, man.
Kind of did my commentary on that really quickly. But you're joining the article in progress. So,
What article?
this article is Chomsky, U.S. spawned a fundamentalist Frankenstein in the Mideast.
I can partially agree with that.
Well, wait, because it's all the whole, it's still feeding into the idea that ISIS is something that wasn't fabricated. It's a natural a natural result of what we've done, in that part of the world and all that. So, let's see now. The U.S. committed, has given their. Where was I at here? Iraq, okay. Is correct, I think. ISIS, okay. Like Britain before it in the U.S. has tended to support radical Islam. Okay. All right. Here we go. Like Britain before it, the U.S. has tended to support radical Islam and to oppose secular nationalism, which both imperial states have regarded as more threatening to their goals of domination and control. When secular options are crushed, religious extremism often fill the vacuum. Furthermore, the primary U.S. ally over the years, Saudi Arabia, is the most radical Islamist state in the world and also a missionary state, which uses its vast oil resources to promulgate its extremist Wahhabi Salafi, I know the word Wahhabi, but Salafi doctrines by establishing schools, mosques, and in other ways, and has also been the primary source for the funding of radical Islamist groups along with Gulf Emirates, all U.S. allies. Wow, okay. It's worth noting that religious fanaticism is spreading in the West as well as democracy erodes. The U.S. is a striking example. There are not many countries in the world where the large majority of the population believes that God's hand guides evolution, and almost half of these think that the world was created a few thousand years ago. And as the Republican Party has become so extreme in serving wealth and corporate power that it cannot appeal to the public on its actual policies, it has been compelled to rely on those sectors as a voting base, giving them substantial influence on policy. So religious extremism is growing, and this is the real problem. It has nothing to do with the strategic advantages that are gained by creating your opposition. Not at all, right? It has nothing to do with the fact that these people were funded and armed by our assets in the first damn place. And they always are, over and over again. The enemy of our enemy is our friend, once again. I always love when Chomsky is being quoted and cited in these kind of things, because this is what it leads to. And this is another reason, not just because of the JFK thing, but this is another reason why I say he's a gatekeeper, because he's doing nothing but feeding into the narrative that we're looking at, the Holy War. And it's the Holy War that we didn't want to actually participate in. It's a holy war because religious extremists and political extremists are the most dangerous thing on the planet. I don't know. What do you have to say about it?
It's gotten to a point where everyone in the eye of the public, and who's always cited, is like this. So really, we shouldn't be surprised. Chomsky is no different from any other spokesman.
Right, and here's what I hate about it, is that now I think he's going to go start making points that I make, which regard, there is a natural, like I said, there is a natural result that comes from, our assets activities in that part of the world. there's going to be a backlash, as many people have pointed out, and I'm not the only one, but as many people have pointed out, if any group of foreign invaders were to land on U.S. soil, and decimate the infrastructure as we have done over there, and absolutely topple the leadership and everything else, you're going to have blowback from that. It's just the way it is. I mean, and if they did it here, even if they came through, and a lot of us might not be all that unhappy if, Obama fell under the sword or whatever. But factually speaking, if that occurred and they destroyed our infrastructure at the same time and decimated the population at the same time, we might take it personally. And there are people over there who have definitely taken it personally and have gone into the business of basically being the insurgents. So this is part of the reality, but nobody's taking a step back here. I mean, a lot of these mainstream people do not take a step back and see the grand chessboard for what it is, and that it's a strategic move. And interesting that it's usually our assets who have strategically inflated and propped up these people.
Yeah, that's expected at this point, that the people who are going to benefit from it probably caused it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, see, it's just the ignorance of the grand plan, where the both sides of the equation are always funded by the same people for the same ends. We'll look at the chaos in Iraq and the problems in Iraq. That was exactly the plan. So, that's why I think it's an irrelevancy to start arguing over whether Obama's policies did the right thing regarding it and everything else, because it is part of the plan that we have chaos there. It's part of the plan that we have, violence, tribal, and sort of the splintering of a once sort of unified nation, regardless of how you viewed their unification, regardless of how you viewed their banner, their leaders, their policies, etc. It's still just one of those things that's been done by design. Okay. So, on with the article. The U.S. committed major war crimes in Iraq, but the acts of violence committed these days against civilians in the country, particularly against children and people from various ethnic and religious communities, is also simply appalling. Given the Iraqi...
Oh, he was right about one thing. We have committed a lot of egregious acts, and we continue to do the same.
Well, right. And given that Iraq exhibited the longest stretch of political stability under Saddam Hussein, this is so strange. Should one draw from the extremely messy situation in the part of the world? Okay. Let's get to the meat of the matter here. The most elementary lesson is that it is wise to adhere to civilized norms and international law. The criminal violence of rogue states like the US and UK is not guaranteed to have catastrophic consequences, but we can hardly claim to be surprised when it does. But this is the thing. The fact that we were involving ourselves in this, and again, I know it's our assets under our, under the guise of acting on our behalf. Should we not be surprised? No, there should be no surprise that there is a pushback, as I said before. All right, well, let's see. U.S. attacks against ISIS bases in Syria without the approval and collaboration of the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad would constitute a violation of international law, claimed Damascus, Moscow, and Tehran before the start of bombing. However, isn't it the case that the destruction of ISIS forces in Syria would further strengthen the Syrian regime? Or is it that the Assad regime is afraid it would be next in line? Well, I don't know how to answer that one, because the question is interesting, but the premise is all screwed up here, because the people that that now constitute what we're calling ISIS, at one point we're in opposition to Assad's regime, and we were supposed to be going in there, but we couldn't sell it the same way as the Iraq War. I mean, he used chemical weapons on his own people, and he's a terrible dictator. And I mean, of course, if you go way, way back to H.W. Bush, you'd get the rhetoric that, this could be the next Hitler because of his policies and all that. But barring that ridiculousness, it is very much the same kind of thing. He's using these terrible weapons on his own people, and for humanitarian reasons, we need to go in there. What do you think of that?
That's all I got.
Yeah, it's all I wish I had, but too much dead air here. Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. I'm just saying, I wish that's all I had. Yeesh. Let's see.
I don't really know how to respond to that, honestly.
But the good point is made here that, look at the Assad's regime reaction to this stuff, and think about it, stepping away from their narrative to begin with, and just, imagine whatever you want to imagine about it, and there is a clue there. Okay. The Assad regime has been rather quiet. It has not, for example, appealed to the Security Council to act to terminate the attack, which is undoubtedly in violation of the UN Charter, the foundation of modern international law, and, if anyone cares, in parentheses, part of the supreme law of the land in the U.S. under the Constitution. That's in parentheses. Assad's murderous regime doubtless can see what the rest of the world does. The U.S. attack on ISIS weakens its main enemy. See, that's the logic that's being put out there regarding this, is that, of course, Assad's not going to oppose it because these are the people opposing Assad. However, it doesn't change the fact that we're still striking on his territory. I don't know.
Well, it also doesn't change the fact that this is going to go from ISIS to Assad.
Yeah, well, that was the point that was kind of, just sort of mentioned up there. I mean, are they afraid they'll be the next in line? Okay.
Well, they will be.
Well,
we know how this is played.
Exactly. According to the plan that we've all been talking about for many years, it seems as though, it's a certainty that they'll be the next in line. And if anybody cares, we are through the first hour on the Ochelli Effect on UZY.TV. Okay, I try and do that at the beginning of the second hour, but sometimes I forget. Okay.
Don't worry, I forget all the time on my shows.
Yep. Okay, in addition to some Western nations, this is continuing with the article, in addition to some Western nations, Arab states have also offered military support to U.S. attacks against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Is this a case of one form of Islamic fundamentalism, in parentheses, Saudi Arabia, for example, close parentheses, exhibiting fear for another form of Islamic fundamentalism, in parentheses, ISIS, question mark. See, I've always wondered about that too, because, the Wahhabi belief in because, you often hear about the Shiite and, the Sunni struggles there within the Islamic faith. You often hear about how one party is more extreme than the other in certain ways, and they always bring out the concept of, look, this is the way they treat women as an example, et cetera, et cetera.
You're going back to that whole. You're going back to that whole thing, the argument that happened over that.
Well, I'm just saying, that just as an example, this is what's usually seized upon, and most times you don't hear about the Wahhabi sect, the Wahhabi sort of, portion of Islam, which is way more extreme, way more fundamentalist than either the Shiite or the Sunni, and I mean even more extreme than those guys who are beating themselves with chains in the streets. Way, way, way past that. And meanwhile, these guys have been one of our most consistent allies. So taking your moral outrage, to its logical conclusions, why are we allied with Saudi Arabia? Why are we allied with, everybody brings in Israel into that discussion immediately, but let's just leave them out of it for a moment. Saudi Arabia, why are we allied with them? Why?
Because they give us oil.
Yeah, supposedly. But then again, take a look at how OPEC has been handling things, and okay. All right. Here we go. And this is so hard for me to read. As the New York Times accurately reported, the support is tepid. The regime, and that was in quotes, by the way. The regimes surely fear ISIS, but it apparently continues to draw financial support from wealthy donors in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and its ideological roots, as I mentioned, are in Saudi radical Islamic extremism, which has not abated. Well, that's a good point, is that, if this, ISIS organization is the growing, expanding boogeyman that it is, their roots really lie within the Wahhabist area of the belief system. And the best known nation for that at this point would be the Saudis. The Wahhabists do exist in other places, though. I mean, I've personally known Pakistani Wahhabists. And believe me, they have some rather extreme views. And the reason why I know some of these guys, or have known some of these guys personally, is because they could never return to their countries of origin for fear of the fact that they would be put to death for some sort of moral infraction that probably wouldn't even be good enough grist for the Jerry Springer shows of the world here. But yeah, that's a reality, and it is one of those odd contradictions, because we have always got to be the United States who drops freedom and humanitarianism bombs on everybody, but at the same time we ally ourselves with some of the most radical elements of that which we are doing battle with. So there's always this contradiction, and interesting how we flip sides all the time too.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. and right from there, right after that line about Saudi radical Islamic extremism, which has not abated. Next paragraph: life in Gaza has returned to normalcy after Hamas and Israel agreed to a ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
For how long? Question mark. That's the whole paragraph. Well, okay.
That distraction can only last so long.
Yeah, but it's an ongoing thing, and I find it remarkable that quite honestly, it was only focused on as a distraction. The events and the continuing slaughter of those people and the continuing domination of the Palestinian people by the criminal state of Israel is ongoing. This is not something that just popped up a few months ago when people started to mention it in the mainstream. This is something that has been ceaseless. So, okay, next paragraph. Let's try to be fair. I would hesitate to use the term, quote, normalcy. The latest onslaught was even more vicious than its predecessors, and its impact is horrendous. The Egyptian military dictatorship, which is bitterly anti-Hamas, is also adding to the tragedy. Well, let's now get to the real questions here. Okay, what will happen next? There has been a regular pattern since the first such agreement was reached between Israel and the Palestinian Authority in November of 2005. It called for a crossing between Gaza and Egypt at Rafah for the export of goods and transit of people. Continuous operation of crossings between Israel and Gaza for the import/export of goods and the transit of people, reduction of obstacles to movement within the West Bank, bus and truck convoys between the West Bank and Gaza, the building of a seaport in Gaza, and the reopening of the airport in Gaza that Israeli bombing had demolished. Well, yeah, that's all kind of true from that stuff. You still with me, Dylan? All right. continuing on. Later agreements have been variants on the same theme as the current one as well. Each time, Israel has disregarded the agreements while Hamas has lived up to them, as Israel concedes in parentheses, until some Israeli escalation elicits a Hamas response, which gives Israel another opportunity to, quote, mow the lawn, end quote, in its elegant phrase. The interim periods of, quote, quiet, end quote, in parentheses meaning one-way quiet, allow Israel to carry forward its policies of taking over whatever it values in the West Bank, leaving Palestinians in dismembered cantons. Okay. All, of course, with crucial U.S. support, military, economic, diplomatic, and ideological, in framing the issues in accord with Israel's basic perspective. That is a whole lot of double talk for support the Israeli criminal state, regardless of whatever atrocities they commit, and this is the action they take. This is ongoing and long before 2005, obviously,
what
for many, many years.
Are you reading now?
The same one.
Well, I mean, what website?
From thefallingdarkness.com.
So they're quoting other articles?
Well, yeah, people do that. It's just, you know, they're discussing.
I was just curious.
Yeah, they're discussing Chomsky here, and of course, this is where I get twisted into knots, and this is how people end up just throwing up their hands after a while over these discussions, because it gets completely convoluted. That indeed was back to the article. That indeed was the purpose of Israel's disengagement from Gaza in 2005, and disengagement is in quotes, while remaining the occupying power, as recognized by the world, apart from Israel, even the U.S. The purpose was outlined candidly by the architect and chief negotiator of the disengagement, Prime Minister Sharon's close associate, Dov Weissglass. He informed the press that, quote, the significance of the disengagement plan is the freezing of the peace process, and when you freeze the process, you prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state, and you prevent a discussion on the refugees, the borders, and Jerusalem. Effectively, this whole package, called the Palestinian state, with all that it entails, has been removed indefinitely from our agenda. And all this with the authority and permission, all with a U.S. presidential blessing and the ratification of both houses of Congress. Yeah. Well, now we're getting into a deep discussion about this, and, you know, I don't even think I can handle the entire headache. But what do you think, Dylan? You want to continue on with this, or should we find ourselves elsewhere?
I think we should go elsewhere with it, because I don't really know where we're going.
Okay. Not
Sorry,
a problem.
I really don't know where we're going.
Not a problem. What have you found interesting in news feeds lately? Tell me, and I'll see what we can get.
Nothing really interesting going on, actually.
So it's kind of a slow news week, in your opinion, right?
Yeah, but it's only Tuesday.
Oh, this is true. They've got plenty of time to ratchet it up before Friday and the change of the news cycle, right?
Yeah, they have plenty of time.
Well, let's see what we have here. All right. Connecticut, I don't want to deal with that. I guess I'll start back at the home base and see where we are. Anyhow, what shows have you done of interest lately over there? By the way, Dylan does The Truth Speaks on 3 different networks now. Well, we got the one which Shake and Wake, and then we have CJ Mars and also the Liberty Beacon are carrying you. So, what shows have you done of interest lately?
Well, I did the show with Roger. That was the last show I've done since I was on with you last.
Well, right. What did you guys end up going over?
All the links between vaccines, fluoride, GMOs, geoengineering, and perpetual and biological warfare.
Right, because they all are interconnected. Some of us focus on one or the other as as our main sort of platform for discussion, but quite factually, they are all interrelated one way or another.
Yeah, they are.
So let's see. What show did you do before that?
The one we did, the one that I did with you on Thursday.
All right. Well, what was the topic before that Thursday show? Because you had another one before that.
Round table, where it really got hijacked.
Oh, right. Yeah, it kind of did. That's true. I happen to know a little bit about that one.
Yeah, you were on that one.
Yep. For a while.
For a while.
For a while, but I've got to drop out of discussions when they devolve into just people getting irritated at one another for not wanting to respect each other's beliefs, especially regarding something as personalized as spiritualism, but or as a spiritual belief system in one way or another. I don't even want to say that the individuals discussing anything there were particularly spiritual. It's just a matter of, in that sort of realm of topics, let's just say that becomes the proverbial pissing contest that I just don't see a purpose to participating in. But that's just me.
And I find no argument with that. I completely agree.
Let's see. The collapse of the American economy has begun. 5 facts about the creepy ties between pharmaceutical companies and doctors. Not just the largest economy. Here are 26 other ways China has. All right. Banksters, the use of law and deception to enslave. Big win. Monsanto reports $156 million loss in Q4 as farmers abandon GMO crops. What do you think, Dylan? Give me an idea here so I can sift through and grab something.
Sorry, man. I'm kind of out of it. Sorry, I'm not much help.
Great. Well, always a pleasure to have you on, Dylan. How often are you going to say to me, I got nothing?
During this show or total?
Either way.
Hold on, I can't count that on my hands.
See, you're revealing far, far too much by telling people that, you need your hands to count things. That's not good, Dylan. Not good at all, sir. You should not allow people to know that. Okay.
Well, ISIS captured a few more towns or a few more areas of Kobani.
Okay. When was this? Today?
A couple days ago.
Let's see. Here's a commentary. See, I don't want to get into this whole police state thing. It's not my deal.
Well, you've already covered it a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, I had to because of the situation in Ferguson. Of course, we have the revisited situation now because of this new shooting in St. Louis, right? Did you hear about that?
I did. For now, it seems... 17 bullets is kind of excessive, but for now it seems more justified than the other.
Yeah, that's part of it, but I don't know, the overall attitude when you see, when you see this stuff developing, I mean, it's just disgusting.
Oh, I agree. Hey, did you get, I saw you posted a mass action demand. Did anyone reply?
No, of course not. Of course not. I probably should have just gone to something geoengineering so I could prevent my drunk caller who calls up from telling me that again I need to do a chemtrails show. But
Oh, I might have a really interesting guy to discuss that.
oh, great. I can't seem to elicit anybody who wants to focus on chemtrails to come on here. I've tried.
He will probably piss off a lot of your audience because he thinks Dane Wigington is a hack, but...
Oh boy. Well, let me see who we're talking about before I entertain that idea. Because I do turn away guests, believe it or not. I do turn away people that I think their information is just bad and their presentation is just pointless. I do, believe it or not. I mean,
Really?
yeah, I do. Let's see.
With all the technical issues.
Well, yeah, you would think that I would just be happy to have anybody show up because of all the problems I have. But, hey. Let's see. CDC, hermetically sealed caskets for Ebola victims.
Interesting.
Let's go to this here. See what we have. It takes a minute. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, what else is out there in mainstream stupid news? I mean, should we just literally, turn on...
Let's go see what Reuters has to say.
All right, you go ahead and pull up a Reuters article. See if you can find a good one. And,
no, that passable one.
Well, I'm going to go like this. The CDC, this is what this is titled as, CDC hermetically sealed caskets for Ebola victims, a.k.a., quotes, FEMA coffins. Okay. And this is by Brandon Smith. I remember years back when I was still writing for my original website, Nethercore US, we came across a then little-known video of airtight coffin liners, hundreds of thousands stacked in a field in the middle of Madison, Georgia, in close proximity to Atlanta and the home of the CDC. We helped break the story. Owners of the property leased to store the hermetically sealing plastic coffins stated that it was the CDC that had rented the land for storage of the coffins. Confirmation from the CDC has not been forthcoming. I've been keeping my eyes open for any mention of these kinds of coffins since that story was released, knowing that one day they would suddenly be touted by the government as it had always been in use. It appears that day is close at hand. Now, of course, we all remember the Jesse Ventura episode, if anybody was watching Conspiracy Theory.
That was not a bad episode, actually.
No, was it? It was pulled, though. I think that was the episode that was actually pulled and has been disappeared now. But if you look around hard enough, you can find it. It was...
it's on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe. But it gets taken down from time to time. I know that, too. Which was discussing the FEMA camps, and Alex Jones winds up taking Jesse Ventura out to see these grave liners, which are presented there as two-person coffins for some sort of mass outbreak, and of course this falls right in line with the recent Ebola stuff. So, in a story for Yahoo News, the CDC says that in the event of an Ebola outbreak in the U.S., bodies of the deceased would be required to be buried within hermetically sealed caskets, which would prevent the escape of microbes during funerals. Well, caskets get sealed pretty well anyway. I mean, most decent caskets become sealed quite well anyhow. But I guess these would be a cheap way to handle it if it was, mass demand all at once. Let's see. An administrator of the Dallas Institute of Funeral Service interviewed in the article states that he has never come across any such caskets in his industry, meaning hermetically sealed coffins are not common in the slightest for burial. Well, that's not precisely true. They are somewhat common, but they may not be used in the majority of cases, but they are kind of common. I do know that. So I don't know where this guy's coming from. But okay, that was my commentary. The CDC coffins in Madison, Georgia, though, are designed to prevent the spread of infection. In fact, the patent for these coffins confirms that they are meant for the burial or cremation of bodies exposed to infectious diseases. And then he gives a link for the patent. Okay. This would suggest that the CDC has stockpiled such coffins in places like Madison, Georgia, specifically in preparation for a viral outbreak, meaning the CDC has been expecting the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans due to infection for at least the past 6 years. This is a long period of preparation. Such preparation requires certainly not hypothesis, especially where the federal government is involved. So, in other words, they're obviously collecting these things because there is going to be a massive demand for them, as I said before. What were you going to say, Dylan?
I don't think I was going to say anything.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
No problem. I'll just continue on. Our government was so certain of a viral catastrophe, they purchased fields full of sealing coffins to be ready for it, not to prevent it, but to have the means to clean up after it. Let that thought settle for a moment, and then read my latest article. An Ebola outbreak would be advantageous for globalists to understand the bigger picture, which is also on the Liberty Beacon site. I'm not going to go to it. But, yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put the whole concept of the FEMA camps, which we have been discussing for many years in alternative circles, and you consider that what would you need to contain people for? Most people think it's for the purposes of containing dissidents and those who would speak out against the country and all that. Your opposition to be contained and imprisoned in these camps and everything else. It seems more viable as a solution for a disease outbreak to quarantine people, I think. And that was rather a creepy thing, I got to be honest with you. And I've seen more than one video piece on this large field of caskets before. And they are just, essentially containers all stacked together. And that is what their purpose is. It leads to a lot more questions than answers in my mind. But you got anything to say about it?
Well, typically these things do lead to more questions than answers. I mean, that's with anything.
Well, and just like with the purchase of ammunition, the bulk pickups of ammunition by the U.S. Postal Service and other government agencies, usually these types of supplies are not acquired or stockpiled by a government agency without there being a purpose for them. In order to requisition this stuff in the first place, the people that, do that paperwork, they don't just randomly decide to pick up items in bulk. This is not the way of things. So obviously there's a purpose for it. And, hey, wouldn't that be convenient if there was just so many overwhelming deaths and there was such a backlog in our existing infrastructure regarding the disposal of human bodies that we required the government's help to clean up mass sites where there were, huge die-offs, right?
Mm-hmm. Would be awfully convenient.
And of course they would have all of their supplies on the ready already. They wouldn't have to order new stuff or, scramble to find themselves new stockpiles of body bags, which was another thing that hasn't made anybody's news feed. But there was also the acquisition of body bags I've seen floated around that people have postulated were exactly designed for this type of outbreak as well. It's a whole lot easier to throw a body bag into one of these plastic-looking cartons, than it is to just dump a body in it. But the remains of of a decimated population being buried in massive, symmetrical cartons and all that stuff and having these stockpiles ready. Yeah, definitely a creepy thing to look at, and I would welcome somebody who would want to explain any alternate explanation for that, other than they're assuming that there will be a large need for them. So, and if you have me on your Skype list, or if you want to call in, the number is 718-717-8296, and the phone is open. Okay. So I don't know, Dylan. I mean, did you? Well, let's start here. I mean, you saw that episode of Conspiracy Theory, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And it was literally disappeared. Like, you don't get it in the box set anymore, and they got it off of the website, and it wasn't being promoted anymore. And when it was scheduled to be replayed, it disappeared from the cable stream and all that stuff. I'm not sure if all the stories are true regarding how that disappeared and everything else. I find them suspect as well. But it is a rather fascinating look at that kind of stuff anyway. And so, although I'm not in agreement with Jesse Ventura on a lot of things, I got to say that at the very least he got some good information out there. And I try and take that attitude regarding his JFK episode of Conspiracy Theory, but there's my for the day. Because, when you're going to focus on a family of secrets, and you're going to try and drag George H.W. Bush directly into the conspiracy, I've got a problem. If you're going to buy the E. Howard Hunt disinformation, which is being propagated by St. John Hunt at this time, I've got a problem, because there are so many holes in these things. I mean, Swiss cheese is envious. So, what can I say? Plus, the whole sort of stage show of producing these so-called documents that would tie Nixon directly to it, just not good, not scholarly research in any way, shape, or form, not well founded. It's good that he did the whole thing at the end where he couldn't film at Arlington, and and I got to go with that, and I got to go with the fact that the Warren Commission is absolutely one of the biggest lies ever perpetrated by the U.S. government on its people in an official sense. But at the end of the day, I still got to applaud him, I guess, for getting the word out on a mass scale, which is at least a good thing, that there is at the very least something very, very wrong with the official explanation. So I guess I'll leave it at that. What's your view on Ventura and his shows and all that?
Pretty much the same. I mean, I don't agree with him on everything, but I still watch what he does now, because it's still kind of interesting to see his viewpoint.
Well, you've been watching the off the grid thing he does?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I've caught pieces of it here and there, and
well, he had Judith Very Baker on.
Yeah, unfortunately, he buys that fairy tale as well.
He does? I didn't watch that.
Yeah, okay, I'll put it to you this way. A couple of years ago, when he was commenting on it, he seemed to fall right for it. And, talk about something that's completely incongruous with reality. One of these days. Okay. But a lot of nonsense has been erected around this, and a lot of sort of what Jim Garrison used to call our golden apples have been formed up around the JFK assassination, as I've said many times. And this is what makes me kind of unpopular as a JFK expert at this point in time, because I won't latch on to ridiculousness, those outrageous conspiracy theories, as one of our presidents once most famously said. I can't, just like I don't buy 19 hijackers and one guy who missed a plane with box cutters, absolutely destroying buildings and causing the greatest loss of life on U.S. soil.
There was a guy who missed a plane.
Oh, yeah, you might not remember Zacharias Moussaoui.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah,
Keep filming it.
probably if you enter into a search engine, the 20th hijacker, you'll find that this guy stood trial and was, it's a whole other part of the sham that nobody even talks about anymore. But he was the, quote, 20th hijacker, end quote. So, yeah, he was a guy who just got himself, I think if I recall, because I haven't even looked at the story in a long time, he was actually detained ahead of the event and therefore couldn't participate, but he was meant to be up there. Although he makes no sense in that crowd of guys that they present to you as the 19 hijackers. But, but who's counting?
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, take a look at it. You'll see. It's really nonsensical. I mean, I don't even. Well, how much time do I have left here? I got 20 minutes left, which is not adequate enough to even dissect that. But you just take a look at it for yourself and see the silliness if they haven't disappeared all that by now. But he did actually stand trial, and there was limited news out there about it for a little while. But again, the sheep out there didn't really embrace that part of the narrative, so it disappeared. Yeah. But either way, I find that just to be as ridiculous as a fairy tale as I do the Warren Commission report, as I do Judy Baker's story, as I do, yeah, they're fabrication. They're fabrications. They're based on fact, but very loosely. So
we're gonna have to do a myths show eventually.
Yeah, JFK myths. I really.
You want to do that on the new network, CJ Mars?
Well, I don't know. I just want to prepare for it and really come up with an action-packed kind of episode that we can really push out there as a freestanding, standalone kind of presentation that would, cover everything. And I mean, from the Bill Cooper hypothesis on to the Judy Baker hypothesis, all of it. Because I don't want to leave stones unturned here.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and so that's one of those things that I'd really want to mentally prepare for. I mean, I can have general discussions about that topic anytime, but I would really rather that we covered as many bases as possible in 2 hours, and probably not even all in depth. Probably just with a very simple, this is garbage. This is basically why. This is garbage. This is basically why.
Yeah, we only have to really in-depth tackle a couple.
Right. That's true. So, all right. In current events, though, let's just for giggles, because I'd like to try and end the show with a laugher. Did you find anything on Reuters?
Nothing really that interesting. I'm kind of disappointed. Hey, do you want to check out Before It's News? They usually have something pretty funny.
Sure, why not?
I was reading an article on there yesterday where a small dog evidently attacked a little Martian.
A small dog attacked a Martian.
Yeah, on this website.
Okay.
I like reading these guys. They're really funny.
All right, well, let's see here. Well, we could go to, okay, I just happened to pop open the Reuters site. And let's see where we want to go here. In Putin's mind, Ukraine is not a nation. Airstrikes intensify as conflict shakes Turkey. Police and protesters face off in a tit-for-tat. That's in Hong Kong. Gardner Roots in Colorado Senate race. North Korea leader Kim reappears. Oh, how about that one?
Let's hit it.
Let's go with that, because after all, one of the main three prongs of the trident of disinformation lately I saw. Go ahead.
How about this just for a headline? Giant squid attacks submarine.
Yeah, well, look, I can dream that stuff up all day. I can tell you that that a ferry with combat boots recently shot a U.S. senator and all that kind of stuff too. But it was a failed assassination attempt on Harry Reid. How about that? Okay, there you go. There's my contribution to that for now. Okay. Now, like I was saying with North Korea, part of the trident of disinformation and mind control out there recently, I noted, was between going from the Ebola crisis to racial divisionism and junk news. They turned around and also started to focus on Kim Jong Un has disappeared. He hasn't been seen. Has there been a coup? Is his little sister in charge? Should we be worried about this nuclear nation, et cetera, in the mainstream? So, for a good laugh, let's turn to Reuters, because they usually make something happen in their articles that makes no sense whatsoever. So, from Reuters.com, North Korea leader Kim reappears with walking stick, according to the state media. Okay, and this is by Tony Monroe and Jack Kim. Okay, Reuters in parentheses. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, shown using a cane for support, reappeared in state media on Tuesday after a lengthy public absence. This had fueled speculation over his health and grip on power in the secretive, nuclear-capable country. See, I pointed out on an earlier show that, of course, they were talking about maybe he was just having an attack of gout because he was fat and everything else. And, of course, in one place I was discussing this, somebody started talking about the possibility that he might be one of the transgendered people out there on the world stage and all that kind of good stuff. And, hey, who knows? After all, I still stress everybody who listens to me to go look on YouTube and just type in the words Michelle Obama is a man. Take a look at those videos and tell me if they don't get you thinking. But okay. Now, several pictures on the front page of the Rudong Simon newspaper showed Kim smiling and gesturing on a visit to a housing development, although there was no indication which day the event took place. He was surrounded by aides and wearing his signature dark-bottomed suit and appeared to be supporting himself with a black walking stick. I love how they got to do the fashion update on him and everything. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Finally got a word from Roger. Apparently he had serious computer issues. This is why I couldn't get a hold of him. All right. Well, sorry about that, Roger. I feel your pain. Okay.
So do I, man. So do I. My desktop is busted. I am on my laptop.
Right. Well, okay. There have been no official reports on the 31-year-old Kim appearing in public since he attended a concert with his wife on September 3rd. He missed an important political anniversary on Friday as well as a recent session of the country's parliament. Okay. A story in the official KCNA news agency on two public appearances by Kim was dated Tuesday, but also did not specify on which day he made the visits. It also did not mention Kim's health or lengthy absence from public view. Reuters could not independently verify the reports.
I run it.
Yeah, well, because they're just giving you the pieces of other people's reports, which is part of what goes on anymore. It's just like references to other people's reporting as opposed to doing original reporting for yourself, which is precisely what news service agencies are not supposed to do. But hey, who's counting? Okay. The KCNA report, which was typical of its chronicling of Kim's activities, said he gave, quote, he gave field guidance, end quote, to the new Wisong Scientists Residential District and visited the newly built Natural Energy Institute of the State Academy of Sciences. Quote, our scientists are patriots who are devoting all their lives to building a rich and powerful nation, end quote, Kim was quoted as saying. Yeah, why do you have to say Kim was quoted as saying when you put something in quotes? Okay. Anyway, in still pictures broadcast by state TV, Kim was often shown seated, once with a cigarette in his hand, while his aides stood. He was also shown in a green multi-seat golf cart along with several members of his entourage.
I'm gonna drop out for the night, man. I'll see you.
All right.
Sorry.
No problem, Dylan. No problem. Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, see you tomorrow.
All right. So, the reports of Kim's activity may be aimed at dispelling rumors outside the country and to ease any concern inside the North and its military following an exchange of gunfire on Friday between North and South Korea, an analyst said. Okay, in quotes, he's the military leader, and there was military action a few days ago, said An Chan-il, who served in the North's Army as a junior officer before defecting to the South in 1979 and now heads a private think tank on North Korea in Seoul. There was likely concern inside the North's, this is in quotes, there was likely concern inside the North's military as well as among the public, end quote, which would be eased by Kim's reappearance, he said. Kim Jong-il reappearing. Well, what can you do, right? Let's see, Roger's dropped up, okay. Moving forward here. Okay, delicate stage is the subtitle. Relations between the two Koreas, technically in a state of war since the early 1950s, are at a delicate stage. A high-level delegation from Pyongyang made a surprise visit to the South early this month for the closing of the Asian Games. That led to an agreement to hold further talks by early November, heralding a potential breakthrough in ties that have been frozen since 2000, when the South accused the North of torpedoing a Navy ship, which Pyongyang denies. However, on Friday, North Korea fired shots at balloons carrying leaflets sent towards the North by South Korean activists critical of the North's leadership, and the South fired back. On Monday, the South warned of a strong response if the North provoked a similar incident, although South Korean President Park Geun-hye also reiterated her commitment to engage with the North. One of those things that's not often focused on, I guess, is the fact that, technically speaking, I mean, they have been in a state of conflict ever since 1950 or so. But, we had to involve ourselves in that civil war as well, and blah, 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 and go check it out. Anyway, North Korean officials had, this is in the subtitle Secretive Regime, North Korean officials had denied that Kim was in ill health. Officials in both the United States and South Korea had said recently that there were no indications Kim was in political trouble. A source with access to the North's leadership told Reuters on Thursday that Kim was in firm control of the country, but had hurt his leg taking part in a military drill. Kim, who has visibly gained weight since coming to power after his father died of a heart attack in 2011, had been seen walking with a limp since an event with officials in July. Speculation that Kim's unusually long absence from public view may be due to ill health was fueled by a North Korean television report late last month that said he was suffering from discomfort, in quotes. Some North Korean watchers had also suggested that Kim may have been sidelined in a power struggle. Kim's father, Kim Jong-il, also sometimes disappeared from public view when he led the hereditary dictatorship. The younger Kim's prolonged absence from state media coverage was not the first. In July 2012, 6 months after coming to power, state media did not report on or photograph him for 23 days. He reappeared the next month at a dolphinarium. Kim Jong-il. Yeah, he was part of the distractive nature of the media for a little bit there. So I thought it was kind of funny that he had reemerged, and now, of course, he has a walking stick. And I do love how outlets like Reuters and others will sit there and comment on the continuous, on the details of the color and how things appear and what he was driving around in and what he was wearing. And it's a red carpet event for the puppeteers, I guess. Because if anybody looks like a puppet, that guy does. And, after all, this is the name of the game, right, folks? So, look, I'm just about down to my last couple of minutes here. And although this was an unusual show and other people's computer problems contributed to that as well, I will be able to read some things. And, of course, for those of you that want to pass articles along to me, you can do so if you're on my Skype list, if you're on Facebook or whatever else. If there's something that you want to get my attention, I do listen to my friends first. However, due to, like I said, the sort of haphazard way this show came together, I was sort of picking things at random to read and go over. Hopefully it made some sense and you learned something. Anyway, at the end of the day, I want to thank everybody for listening on ucy.tv. If you went to the regular website and caught us on ucy.tv/TOE, I hope you enjoyed the chat room and the wonderful player there, the news feed. There's an RSS feed archives there for every show if you just go and click on it. For everybody catching us later on downstream or catching us through alternative means like on your Apple iTunes radio, the internet radio portion of it. Thank you. On your TuneIn app, on your Shoutcast, I appreciate it. And if you just decided to download it to see what the Crazy Blind Man had to say today, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, I guess that's just about it. And, what else can I say except that things are changing this week. I hope to have some musicians on. Couple of hip-hop artists actually are going to come up on the show. I'm hoping that I just haven't nailed down a time yet with Payday Monsanto, and there's a couple other guys too that I want to bring out. Not just hip-hop artists, but this week will be hip-hop artists. I think I'm going to also talk to some other awake, enlightened, or aware musicians of other genres out there. Try and bring them on, and we'll have a few discussions regarding the artistic discernment regarding the reality of the world around us and what it's like to be an aware artist, stuff like that. Plus, your general sort of what influenced you and all that kind of good stuff discussions as we go forward too. So stay tuned for that. And, check out everything else on the UCY feed and all that. You can get a hold of me on Facebook. You can find Chuck Ochelli on Facebook or the Ochelli Effect on Facebook. There will be more ways to get a hold of me and listen to me coming up soon. If all goes well, I'll keep doing this 3 nights a week on ucy.tv. And I guess that's about that. It is normally, I have only about 10, 20 seconds before my bumper would kick in on my old setup, but I did change the clock, so hopefully I've actually still got the minute or so left here. Just to say thanks very much. I already did thank everybody who had gone through the different means of listening to us and all that, but I can't thank you guys enough for paying attention every once in a while to something I say, regardless of whether it pisses you off or invites you to think about things in a new way. I urge everybody to make sure they live their lives. Don't be controlled by any of the fear tactics that are out there. Don't embrace the fear porn that is now featuring the Ebola scare. Don't embrace any of this kind of nonsense. Remember to think for yourselves, be yourselves, and get back to the natural human beings that you were meant to be. Thanks so much, and night-night, Froggy.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. You know, I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, you know, pistols and fondle slab of choice, I don't know, computers, internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the cartoon comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't take hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to just read